What is up, L's and G's? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we've got another card I want to analyze from the new set that's fully revealed, Dawn of Majesty. It's a really cool Synchro extender card that got a little bit of hype, but today we're going to go all the way in and look at legitimately every single possible target that you can look up off of this card to potentially have some kind of application. So it's a really cool card. We might as well start off by reading it one more time just to make sure we're all clear on what this card is doing. So yeah, SYNCHRO Overtake, a very cool spell card. This is a normal spell card, of course. It allows you to reveal one Synchro monster in your extra deck and add to your hand or special summon one of the Synchro materials whose name is specifically listed on that card from your deck or graveyard. You can only activate one of this card once per turn, and the turn you use this, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except for synchros. So that's the big drawback, right? It's locking you strictly, very strictly into synchro. So only synchro strategies can really abuse this. I know those are kind of few and far between, but there are a couple out there. And I think anything going forward that is like very, very synchro based may look at this card as a pretty cool extender or even searcher. There's a couple of good search targets for this as well. So without further ado, let's get into some of the targets that are really cool here. So starting off with like obvious ones, we've obviously got some of the Syncron related cards. The one thing to keep in mind with this card is that it only searches targets that are exactly, their exact name is listed in the text of the Synchro monster. So if it said one machine tuner plus other monsters, you cannot just search any machine tuner. It has to say a specific card name, and you can only search or special that exact card. So Junk Warrior allows you to get Junk Syncron. This is actually one of the better ones. Not necessarily to special summon, although it is a level 3 tuner, which is a decent level. But the main thing is you may want to add him more often than not, because when he's normal summoned, he can just reborn any level 2 or lower monster, which is really good. So he already sets you up for either a Synchro 4 or a Synchro 5 play, should you resolve that effect. So I think he's one of the better ones for normal summoning, but still a cool target nonetheless. Going into some of the other ones, we have Drill Warrior, allowing you to search Drill Syncron. This card isn't too great, to be honest, unless you're in like a specific like machine archetype, right, which is fine. But I guess if he's on the field and you deal battle damage with his deal effect damage with your opponent, or with his first effect to your opponent, you'll get to draw a card. I don't expect that to come up very often, but theoretically it's possible. Next up is Turbo Warrior. There's another Synchron, Turbo Synchron. He's actually not terrible, right? When he declares an attack, you can change the monster he's attacking to defense mode. And when you take battle damage when this guy's attacking, you can summon a monster from hand with an attack that's less than the damage you just took. So you switch them into defense mode. He's only 100, so you're going to eat some damage, most likely. And then when you do, you can just like summon a monster from the hand. Somewhat of an extender, pulls a card out of the hand, does take the battle phase. Not amazing, but not terrible. He's fine. Next up is Nitro Warrior, getting you into Nitro Synchron. If he's sent to the graveyard with a Synchro summon of a Nitro Synchro monster, you can draw a card. That's not terrible, but it's not any Synchro monster. And to be honest, the Nitro Synchro monsters are not amazing by any stretch of the imagination. So if you're using them to link like Synchro Climb, and you were going to be, and you had a way to like, you just need a stepping stone anyway, then you can draw a card. But other than that, I don't really see this guy being too relevant there. Next up is Turbo Cannon, getting you into Turbo Rocket. While this card's attacking, it can't be destroyed by battle. And if it attacks after damage calculation, you can inflict damage to equal to half of the attack of the target that your opponent had. So you eat a little bit of damage when you attack, but then you also deal some damage to your opponent. Not terrible, not great. It's just kind of, again, one of those just, okay, it's there. Next up, we have Chevalier Defleur. Now, this is a particularly interesting one because we just got like 6 cards revealed for the Fleur archetype, which is kind of cool. So maybe this will be a thing if it's like fully synchro based. Don't know if it will be or not. That's just, I'm just saying, if it is, pretty cool, right? But you can pull Fleur Syncron out of the deck, which is very cool because when this card is just sent to the graveyard as Synchro material, you can summon any level 2 or lower monster from the hand. That's actually not a bad effect at all. That means you could use this to go into like an 8 or even a 7 and then when you do, you can summon another monster out of the hand, and that may be a monster that gets you to a 7 or an 8 or a 9, whatever else you're going into from there, and potentially getting you into some bigger, badder synchro monsters. So this one's actually pretty good. I think this one's better than most of them, to be honest. This one and like Junk Syncron, I think, are the best ones we've seen here so far. Next up, we have Sundragon T getting us Fire Ant Ascator. This isn't that great, though. He has to be destroyed by battle to get his float effect. Other than that, he's a level 3 tuner. Fine. It's an insect. Cool. Oh, we also have Moondragon Q at the same time. Kind of same thing, but Supei's a little bit better generically. He just has to be sent from field to grave by any card effect, and he can special summon Oracle of the Sun straight out of the deck. But it returns it to the hand during the end phase of the turn. So honestly, not a bad card overall. You just get free advantage off of it. So honestly, this one's a little bit better, but still not great in my opinion. Next up, we have Neogenix, and honestly, there's like 10. I think there's like 6 or 7 Genix monsters that get you to Genix Controller. Again, it's fine, but it's just Genix Controller. It's just a regular tuner. And it's all it represents on field. Next up is Cosmic Fortress Golgar. This guy gets us to Alien Ammonite. The one particular thing I think with this is that it's like not great because we just got the new Link monster revealed. For aliens, we have a Link monster that we got like a year and a half ago, as well as Reptilian Echidna, which is a pretty good Link monster. Their like whole archetype now seems to want to do like Link summoning, not synchro summoning, unfortunately. And Ammonite's a normal summon, which is, I guess, not the worst, because if you already have an alien engraved, you can normal summon him, revive it, go into a synchro. So I guess in that regard, it's not the worst, but definitely not great, because I think the better options for the archetype now are Link-based, unfortunately. Next up, we have a very interesting one, Malefic Paradox Dragon, which allows us to get Malefic Parallel Gear, which is very specific, very interesting. This card allows you to use a Malefic monster from hand as another synchro material, which is really funny, but actually kind of cool. In a pure Malefic strategy, it allows you to go into some pretty interesting cards. But overall, I don't think it's the most crazy thing in the world. But I don't know. In a pure Malefic deck, it's fun, it's cool, it's an interesting application, to say the least. Next up, we have another interesting one. This one is Deep Sea Reptile. I don't know how to pronounce it. The new Synchro actually lists Deep Sea Diva as a specific tuner material. And so we can summon Deep Sea out of deck or search it. We now have a Deep Sea Searcher. Deep Sea Diva Searcher. That's really interesting. I will say that I believe a lot of Deep Sea and like Atlantean decks do want to make Halki Fibrax a fair amount of the time. But I'm not entirely sure that's necessary. I do think this could be a potentially interesting card for like a Deep Sea, like heavy synchro based strategy. You can still Moonling Glacier your opponent for 2 cards. That's really good, of course. Your deck's not as malleable as it might have been before. Being able to use Link monsters to really manipulate how many waters you end up with in grave for Moonling Glacier, but we do know that when Moonling Glacier resolves, a lot of times it does spell the end of the duel, so still some value there. I think this is one of the more interesting ones as well, especially because it's searchable, right? We know this is one card combo for those kinds of decks a lot of the time, so very, very interested in that one to see where we can go with only synchros. Next up, we have the new card, and there's a couple cards that list specifically Majestic Dragon in it, but this is the new. It's like shooting something Stardust Dragon, shooting Majestic Stardust Dragon, I think. The new boss monster from Dawn of Majesty. He allows us to get Majestic Dragon. The one downside of this, and it's not even the one downside, but this card cannot be used as synchro material except for a Majestic monster. So not even just dragons, not even just synchros. Says only can be used for synchro material. It locks you into specifically only going into Majestic monsters, which is really, really rough, to be honest. So, yeah, it's tough. I guess for those decks specifically that are only doing synchros, trying to get to that big guy, I guess this is a pretty good extender for that purpose. But other than that, I don't really see it being too amazing. But yeah. And then we get to probably the overall just best target. There were a couple of interesting ones in there. Deep Sea Diva, Fleur Syncron, Junk Syncron, not terrible, right? There were a couple of interesting targets in there. This one I think is probably overall the best target. And here we have Archfiend Zombie Skull. There's actually 2 other ones as well. I can't even remember the name. But they get us Plague Spreader Zombie. And Plague Spreader is one of the best tuners in the game, especially with stuff like Glow Up Bulb and like Jet Syncron banned for right now. This card's really, really cool to see. So if you don't know what he does, when he's in grave, you can put any card from your hand back on top of your deck and summon him back out. But he's banished when he leaves the field. That's extremely good because it means you can just summon him from deck, synchro into something, and then just toss a card from your hand back into the deck to then just summon him back already. And he extends with himself. So without your normal summon, he is a level 2 tuner that then will be another level 2 tuner to help you just synchro up, which is really, really solid. So definitely a fan of this card. I think this is probably overall generically the best target for this card. But it just depends. Like I think, like I said before, like Deep Sea Diva may just be overall have the most application with this, but you never know. You never know when we're going to get an archetype where Konami just released an archetype. Oh, new like target, and boom, immediately it's like lists a specific target. It's a synchro only archetype, and it makes them super easy and efficiently and all that stuff, and it like works out. It's amazing. I also think that something like Earth's Arctic is interesting because I don't think they play any Xyz. I think they play only synchros, and the extender may be kind of nice for them. I'm not entirely sure on that, how like applicable that is, but definitely something to keep in mind. And I guess the last thing I want to throw out there is like the decks that we saw very briefly before Cyframe Lord Omega went to 1, and that was the junk speeder decks where like people were using like junk synchron, just like synchron, like hyper synchro strategies to just like turbo into like multiple Omegas where you're just like ripping 2 to 3 cards out of your opponent's hand and then just going into your next turn with like 3 Omegas. It's insanely crazy. Obviously we don't have 3 Omegas, so you can't do that to that extent, but you could potentially still make like an Omega plus like 2 more solid synchro monsters next to him and really have some threatening stuff going on. So I do think for a strategy like that, which I don't think makes any link monsters whatsoever, it's all synchros, maybe this is the kind of card that they needed for consistency or extender, because it's either searching you a good normal summon or it's searching you a just being an extender, right? Not even searching, it's just summoning like Plague Spreader right out of the deck. Boom, that's awesome synchro material that's going to allow you to continue to like, you know, start playing and set up a bigger board. So I think those strategies may be the biggest things that get buffed here, but these are all the targets. I literally looked through every single synchro monster in the game. I don't think I missed anything. If I did, I missed maybe one thing because I kind of was going like, you know, kind of skimming like, oh, that works, that works, that works, that doesn't, whatever. But yeah, I think it's a really cool card, but I do think it's a little too niche. I don't think it's going to come up generically enough to really warrant being played in any competitive decks, but we all know how it works. All we need is one competitive deck that specifically works really good with this to happen, and we're off to the races. I mean, what if you want to build Virtual World, but no Xyz? You can do that. That could be an interesting way to try and build Virtual World to make them kind of work. I don't know. But obviously we will see down the line. So that's going to do it for me here today, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, let me know in the comment section down below if you think I'm missing anything here, if there's any particular targets that I might have missed, but maybe some of the targets I talked about have actually better applications than I give it credit for, or maybe the card in general has better applications than I give it credit for. What if Konami just released a card that listed like Ash Blossom as like a synchro target material, and you were playing a deck that doesn't even use the extra deck? Now this card just literally says like add an Ash Blossom to hand, right? Like that would be so crazy. I don't think it would happen, but it'd be such a weird, interesting way to use a card like this. Who knows? I'm just saying, whatever. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'm gonna get the hell out of here. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Bye. I don't know. Bye.